Good morning, good afternoon, in my case, good evening, whatever, who cares. I wanted to go over with you, if you can read, you can scratch, April 13th, 2023. Most recent training session, just walk you through a little bit of not only what, but why I did what I did for my recent training session, how I'm training, and why. I'm going to go over a bit of exercise selection, frequency, just a lot of that stuff. Hopefully, not only should it be slightly entertaining maybe, but my real goal is educational. Put you into the mind of someone that's been training themselves forever, an experienced lifter, hopefully some useful tidbits. So let's begin. How I open at the moment, I have recently been doing either 2 days a week or 3 days a week for frequency. Right now I'm at 2 days a week, trying to limit myself to 2 hours a day. So here's what it looks like for my most recent session. Before I begin, a few prefaces. Everything is in supersets and giant sets, so there's no straight sets where I do like all the sets of an exercise while waiting in between and doing nothing, and then finish and then move to the next exercise. Let's do a set of an exercise, move to the next one, and then back to the beginning. For the amount of volume and work I'm trying to put in, that is an absolute necessity. So everything is supersetted or giant setted as a rule. Also, because I'm only going in 2 days a week, I'm trying to balance, even though leg work is not a high priority for me, I'm trying to balance my volume there. So for one day, I'm doing my first 2 sets of the giant set to open with would be one form of leg movement, and the third set, switch it to the other. So for today, or for this recent session, the first 2 supersets was with hack squats, which I would then alternate with calf raises on the leg press machine. The reason I prefer doing it on the leg press machine is out of all of the equipment in my gym currently, that one feels the most suited to really getting into the stretch for the calves, because you have both the stretch mediated hypertrophy benefit, but also with how gluttonous the Achilles tendon is in taking energy away from the calf. You already get the benefit of a slow eccentric and a pause from there, but really digging into that deep stretch feels great. And the leg press machine does not have my foot slip, whereas other machines do. So when I want to go for the stretch, I use the leg press machine. I would then do some neck work, finally bringing that in. Haven't done that in months, been lazy. So my first 2 rounds of the giant set, that's what I did. For the third round, I kept the calves and the neck the same, but I did some good mornings with the SSP bar. I've tried doing good mornings on a regular bar. Works perfectly fine. Valid if you don't have an SSP, but personally I prefer it on the SSP. For the next giant set, I did some chin-ups, just what I notated as hammer grip. Anything where you're like this, based off like the hammer curl, anything of this neutral grip, I just notate for myself as hammer. H for short. So I did hammer chins first, a couple sets, actually weighted, and then just body weight back off. Supersetted with some incline dumbbell bench and some decline sit-ups. For the incline dumbbell bench, the first 2 rounds, I did as that. For the third round, I actually went on the hammer strength incline chest press machine. Now what I try to do is I'm trying to squeeze as much intensity and work and everything as I can out of myself doing whole body, but trying to limit it to only 2 hours for each session. I'm trying to make compromises. So here I do a version being dumbbells, all the free weight, you have all the stability and all that going on, so lots of great range of motion, lots of hypertrophy benefits. But after working that hard, I save that last set for something where it completely removes stability, so I can focus 100% and go to and beyond failure on the target muscles. So for this third pressing set in this giant set, I did rest pause technique. So I would do as many reps as I could, put the weight down, take 5 or more breaths and go back and do it again. A couple rounds that was able to squeeze a lot more out and do it safely and comfortably when I would absolutely not have been comfortable doing that on the dumbbell version. But I only swapped out the press on that, the ab work and the chin-ups I kept the same, other than dropping the added weight for the chin-ups. That was the second giant set. The third giant set was dips, wide hammer cable rows. Once again, it's just a neutral grip, so I just refer to it. Oh, sorry there. Neutral grip, so I refer to it as hammer, whatever. Not too specific. So wide cable row and a line leg curl. For the dips, once again, after my first 2 sets, I switched the variation to something that removes stability. So opened up with just a single plate. Then, because I'm trying to go for reps and for volume and for quality reps, after the first set being with a plate, which is the only one I recorded, similar with pull-ups, only recorded the weighted one. For the second set of dips, I went down to body weight. And then for the third set, I actually went to the dip machine. Specifically, this is another trick I was shown. Depending on which way you face on the machine, can have slightly different emphasis on muscles. When you face forward in the machine, it is a little more balanced. When you face backwards and have to buckle in with the belt like I did today, it actually places additional pressure on the triceps. And since I had just done incline dumbbell bench and incline machine bench and dips, both weighted and free weight, I figured taking a little bit off the chest and putting more on the triceps was fair, because not long after this I would be transitioning more into arms. So as for the rest of the superset, or the giant set, I kept it the same with the cable rows, and also on the line leg curl on the last set of each of these. I didn't record this because I don't like to record any more than I have to, and I typically only record the first set of every exercise. But on the third set of each of these, the last one, I did beyond failure work. So we're talking like the baby reps, the time holding in the stretch for, if I can, I might find footage as an example from another day where for like a cable row, I'll do additional almost like shrugging motions to, may not be a full row, but like shrugging motions with the upper back and like the little baby reps with a leg curl. I mean, you can imagine that. So I'll do that because I'm only in 2 days a week. I want to squeeze out extra intensity, but I knew I didn't mentally have it in me to do that with every single set today. That was for the third giant set. The final one, which was the arms and shoulders. So opened up with that is, I notate it as the tricep prayer. The predominant reason is because saying kneeling, dual rope, cable, tricep push downs is a mouthful, and I do not want to have to write all of that in my training journal. I already got plenty of chicken scratch, and I only have so much room to write on. So I just call it a tricep prayer. Supersetted with face pulls and hammer curls on the preacher machine. I did them dual, so both arms at a time. I realized this day I prefer doing one arm at a time to focus. Hopefully I'll throw in footage from another day as an example. But I did them both today with the fat grips specifically for additional forearm work. Did these, unlike the other giant sets I did not switch out variations. I did each of these through. And then for, what was it? For the last set of both the tricep prayers and the hammer curls, I also did rest pause technique for my past failure work. So that's simply get to do as many reps as you can, get to a position for the hammer curls. It was where I'm just upright, so the joints are all stacked vertically going down. And for the tricep prayer, it was when my arms are up, so there's no pressure on the triceps. In each case, I can breathe several times there, take some time, reset, and pump out a bunch more reps. For arm work, or at least for these exercises, I found rest pause as a more effective means, as an intensity technique, to go past failure. For other movements like I did previously, like a cable row or a machine row or a leg curl, doing like lots of the baby reps, I actually prefer shorter range of motion, but it's really nasty. Rest pause just doesn't seem the same. So it's learning for post failure intensity techniques, experimenting, and this is what I found for me. Now, energy wise, after this last set, which was for the arms and shoulders, I had more energy, but right now I'm trying to learn to squeeze as much volume and intensity into a 2-hour window as I can. So even though I could have done another giant set of maybe additional arm and even direct forearm work, I told myself, no, you're gonna have to come back to the drawing board, figure out how to fit more of that in next time. And if I hit a limit where I absolutely cannot, no matter what I do, fit more in, I might be willing to expand the timetables. But for this set, also forgot to mention, the reason I did the face pulls is I was torn for what I wanted to do for additional shoulder work. We do have a, what would it be, like a lateral raise machine that works great as well. But I like the idea of the face pulls both for targeting, at least for today, for targeting the rear delts more and a little bit more upper back and just general shoulder health and prehab. So does bodybuilding work. But that's why I chose face pulls today instead of the lateral raise machine as I had other times. Now, how this day fit in comparison to my previous day, I won't go the full in-depth of my previous one, but just 2 days prior, I hadn't fully realized it at the time, but I was actually sick, or like coming off of being sick or something. So I was absolutely trashed, had to cut it short, even though I had extra time. Everything was going slow. So like almost rebounding into this training session today, I felt super good, which is why I was bummed when I hit the 2-hour limit, because I was good to throw in more. But something else I did do, which might have helped, didn't put this on footage, but actually brought with me from work good orange juice bottles. So I had 3 of them. So between the 3 of those, which I was drinking throughout the first half of my workout, you got like 100 grams of carbs, and they're like the natural sugars in orange juice. So they're fast acting liquid carbs. So my plan was, since I open with legs and I'm doing all giant sets and all like lots of work, trying to minimize rest. The idea was when my need for glucose spikes early on, also spike glucose at the same time, so that way they meet, supply and demand meet, so that way I don't crash as hard later on, I can hopefully even out. That seemed to work, but it also, I was rested and it was a shorter shift from workout. So I'm gonna have to experiment with that more, drinking some carbs in the first half. That is one thing I'm gonna have to keep experimenting with, but for this session, it worked amazing. One thing I have been experimenting with, which I actually put forth on this session and the previous session, was in selecting how I designed the giant sets. So like a month ago, let's say, what I was doing is I would open up with the leg work similar to now, but I would put in my arm assistance so I could knock that out of the way. But then afterwards, I'd be doing the compound presses and rows and pulls and such, which meant my arms were already compromised, so that didn't work. So now that I decided to officially add back in neck work, and I'm regularly adding in calves, I decided work that with the leg work. So what I found is once you do your legs, you're huffing and puffing if you put work into them. That's a big compound movement with big muscles. So you're huffing and puffing. When you're trying to do something where you're all bending the neck and you're huffing and puffing and you're having trouble breathing because you're trying to catch up, that don't feel good. However, when you're lying or sitting down and very slowly and controllably doing calves, Like, it doesn't matter if you're huffing and puffing. So I designed that opening giant set is you do the big compound one that wipes you out of breath. You move to calves where it doesn't matter. It will not affect your performance on anything, any lift. If training your calves affects your lift, you got problems. So I can get out of the huffing and puffing to breathing slightly heavy while doing the calves. Then I can move on to the neck training, knock that out, and then back to the beginning. This is part of having to be very intentional with my giant set design, trying to maximize energy efficiency time. I also do not add typically ab work in a giant set containing heavy leg work. Isolation leg work like leg raise, or not leg raise, leg curl is fine. But if it's a compound movement requiring the whole body, that's going to wipe you out. A lot of ab work requires some degree of bracing or breath regulation that when you are trying to catch up on air is not a very pleasant experience. So I prefer to put the ab work with something where I'm not going to be huffing and puffing as much when I get to it. So little things I'm having to learn, and hopefully some of these are useful. Let's see, looking at some of my other giant sets, if there's any other practical information. I mean, some obvious ones like a push and a pull putting together because they work opposite areas, opposite muscles. And I'm trying to even duplicate the same range of motions for like just shoulder and joint health. But I mean, you've hopefully you've heard those tips somewhere else. I'm trying to get to more of the fine stuff. Let's see. Yeah, I think that's good for today. I wanted something fairly quick, easy, but practical because I put a lot of thought into these. Trying to design these freaking giant sets to get as much as I can into 2 hours. So if at least a few people find this and find it useful, maybe I'll make some more like this, just a little bit more relaxed. This was even after work. And by the way, don't you think one of my most prized possessions is the training log? So I figured it should be respected. Well, it's probably like a $3 college ruled notebook in here, but it's one of my most prized possessions. Need to find the old ones. Now, if anyone actually does see this and something I mentioned about how I designed the programs, or in particular the giant sets, like that thought process was useful, I would love to hear that. Because if this can be useful to more people, I'd love to make more breakdowns about not only what my training is, but why I select very specific things, what exercises were selected in what order, if people respond to that, I'll make more. I like giving out information. So there we go. That's all for now. Goodbye.